So, you want to save the world with clean energy? Make money doing it? Confused about the economic and technical realities of residential and commercial solar, batteries, heat pumps, EVs? Want the real-world scoop on new energy technologies, not manufacturer hype? Then tune in to the Weekly Energy Show, hosted by Barry Cinnamon. Insights from Barry's 40-plus years in the solar and energy industry will help you understand the future ways we'll generate and consume energy. And now, here's Barry.
Welcome to this week's Energy Show. Now, this week, we've got a two-part podcast with Vince Battaglia of Renova Energy. The first part, we're going to be kind of talking about general solar industry issues. I think it'll be a lot of interest to consumers. Part two of the podcast, which I also hope you tune into, is going to really be focusing on more solar industry issues. Now, if you're a regular listener to the show, you know that the rooftop solar industry is going through major changes. It's a combination of the end of net metering in California. They call it the net metering 3, but it's really not net metering anymore. These anti-rooftop solar policies are starting to take effect in many other states. Plus, we're still in an environment of high interest rates, which makes solar financing more challenging. So all these things hitting us at once, it gives new meaning to the term solar coaster. We're still on a little bit of a downward plunge, but we know we're going to go back up again. As a result, solar companies, battery companies, large and small, are facing really big financial difficulties. But in spite of these difficulties, some conservative, focused, well-run, ethical solar and battery companies are riding through this dip in the solar coaster. And I'm confident that they're going to emerge more successful than ever. And one of the best run solar companies I've ever seen is Renova Energy. So this week, our guest is Vince Battaglia, CEO of Renova Energy. Renova is based in Palm Desert, California. And over the past 18 years, boy, he's a long timer. He probably has gray hair right now.
And a gray beard.
Yeah, but it gets worse. When you're 20 years in the solar industry, the hair goes away.
Yeah.
Over these years, he's become the leading solar installation company in the Coachella Valley. You may know the festival, but that's really the Palm Springs, Palm Desert area. And they've recently expanded to Arizona. They're very active in Phoenix and Tucson. And I've been very impressed. Vince runs a terrific business. In my view, Renova is one of the prototypical regional solar companies that's going to be around. So welcome back to the show, Vince.
Thank you for having me. And before we get going, I do need to just publicly thank you, Barry, for all of these ups and downs and the coaster. You have always maintained your communication with not only the industry and us on the inside, but the public at large who, want to find a one-stop shop to listen for a half hour, 45 minutes, and catch up and get up to speed on this solar industry. You are that primary driver. And so I appreciate truly your sticking to it no matter what happens. You run a business, you run a day-to-day. And then on top of that, you run an information outlet. So kudos to you. And again, you're doing God's work by keeping everybody together and translating what's going on in the inside to those who are on the outside. So I want to thank you very, very much for what you've done for not just a decade, but 2 decades. It's incredible. So thank you, sir, for your resilience.
Oh, and you do it, I do it, we all do it. We're passionate about solar. We want the industry to survive, and we're going to survive by sticking together and making sure that we're able to support the groups like CALSA, like SIA, that are really going to help us continue to thrive. So thank you, Vince. But this show is about you. Tell us about Renova Energy's business.
Sure.
Background. Dive right in.
2006, this was my thesis for graduating with my MBA from a UC school. And I'm not a very good student at all, but I like people. So on my way of trying to graduate out of that 2-year program, the school said, you need to come up with a thesis, a capstone. You need to start the business. You need to then defend that in order to graduate. So I looked around, just 2005, 2006, saw a monopoly in the way that we generate and deliver electricity here in the United States and around the world, and decided that I would take a poke at really what was going on the inside of that energy industry, the utility industry, the electric utility industry. And I found that it essentially is driven by some severely, antiquated monopolists. And in our friends at Southern California Edison and the rest, I won't bash them because I don't need to. Everyone on the outside and on the inside of our industry recognize that They, as monopolists, just want to continue to perpetuate the monopoly. Unfortunately for them, we've come along with solar battery microgrids, and we've been able to make a tremendous dent in their hold. And that, of course, creates backlash. It took them a good 10 years before they really started fighting. About 3 years ago, though, as you alluded to in the beginning, they decided to cripple the one program that really truly was necessary to see this transition away from their centralized model and towards the more realistic, tech-driven decentralization that we provide, your company, my company, and thousands of others. So they really took a swat at us and are doing everything they can, but have no fear. They will ultimately lose that battle because their prices continue to escalate, as everyone knows. They put it under the guise of wanting to adjust their model slowly by burying power lines and this and that. It's all BS. Their costs are going to escalate no matter what, and our costs continue to come down. So I was able for the past 18 years to drive a business to a point where we had 365 Renovians, as we call everyone here, and in 2 locations. We were about to open a third. And then, we saw we were a SunPower dealer for 15 years. So I want this to be a happy discussion with you. So maybe I'll shut up right now and see if you want to go into the SunPower elements of the distress the industry has been feeling. If you do, I'm more than happy. I'm one of 5 companies that were in a program called the DAP, or the Dealer Accelerator Program, where SunPower took some equity in us. And if you, like I say, if you'd like to go down that road.
Yeah, well, let's not go there yet. Let's talk more about Renova, what you're doing, products, things like that. And you don't have to bash the utilities, but I'm not going to hesitate to bash PG&E because, boy, they're just doing everything they can to lie to
Sure.
lie to everybody in California to line their pockets, and that lying's working out really well for them. And
It is working out well, but there's going to be there's going to be a come to Jesus in very short order. We politically do not have a moral governor. I'm going to say that. This isn't coming from your mouth. The guy is a complete fool. He is in no way some kind of an environmental pragmatist, rather. Pardon me. He is a political opportunist. And as a result, he's been giving air cover to an organization, the electric utility monopoly, that is essentially trying to remain relevant using taxpayer dollars, ratepayer dollars, every legislative trick they can. And he's allowing them to do that. So, where do we go as an industry for that political air cover? It doesn't exist except for our amazing Joan of Arc in Bernadette Del Chiaro.
But she's not going to be burned at the stake. She's going to ram that stake down the throat of the utilities, but it's just going to take a while.
It's going to take a while. And she's out there. She's fighting the good fight. And politically, we've got our back against the wall because, again, we don't have any support from within, the halls of Sacramento. We have inept political leadership on the Dem side, on the Republican side. They clearly don't understand our industry, even though you and I have sat, we've lunched, we've broken bread, we've tried to help legislators to bring them up to speed on the jobs and the economy and all the positives that our solar plus industry deliver to the California economy. Having the same issue in Arizona. I mean, I've met with every politico in our Tucson and Phoenix region, and yet we have been unable to get into their brains just why they should be well versed in our industry and stop taking the lobbyist phone calls from the utility monopolies. But they aren't listening, clearly, because they're all politically motivated. And at this time, the utility monopoly has millions at their disposal, and they're able to go play those political games when guys like you and I, we're roof jockeys. We continue to execute day in and day out. And we will continue to execute because the market is on our side. The market knows there is no alternative to the exposure they have to electric costs when the electricity comes from those utilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's a technological change. They've got a business model based on the old technology. We've got business models based on new technology, and it just takes time. We don't grow as fast as we'd like, but we will eventually prevail. I mean, it's just
Yes, sir.
pretty much of a no-brainer. We're looking at almost free electricity from the sun, and
Right.
that's a
At a
lot better
fixed
than
cost.
60 cents a kilowatt hour.
Right. And I have a prediction. I want everyone who's listening, who's on the inside like us, to know that by Q2 of next year, I promise you, Renova operates, let's just say for argument's sake, we're at about $3 a watt, right? Our industry is all on that per watt basis. And I predict that we will be able to move that needle up. We're going to be able to sell our systems for more and therefore bring more margin, more capital to our companies so that we can reinvest and regrow after this gut punch from late last year that the utility provided. That is my prediction because their costs continue to escalate. Homeowners continue and business owners continue to want what we sell because they realize there's no cover from against their exposure to the utilities. So with that said, in simplistic form, we're going to be able to increase our pricing, which is just great for our industry, and it will allow us to fight back politically. We'll be able to have those lobbyists that can get our discussion out there. We need more mouths, Barry. We need more people to speak. And that's why I never speak disparagingly about the Dan in the van, the Chucks in the trucks, the guys who were working at it, because they are the Army and our allies. They support us in getting the message to, the politicians who one day will be swayed, and the market is going to drive that. But in order for the market to drive it, again, we need more boots on the ground. I don't care under what company banner. It doesn't matter to me. That you are all my allies who are listening, all of you. The enemy are the utilities, right, Bear?
Absolutely. And, I'm sure we'll get there. All right, let's dive into some of the details about Renova. I know the SunPower transition has been pretty brutal. What kind of equipment are you installing? What kind of batteries? What kind of roofs do you work on? How do you deal with the heat in Palm Desert, in Arizona?
We like deserts. Deserts are our favorite. Yeah. So when we were with SunPower, we were very Maxion driven under the SunPower lease. We are driven in cash by a great company called Meyer Burger. I have a great product if anyone hasn't had exposure to them. They had a bit of a hiccup in their cell manufacturing, but I truly believe they're going to get over that.
And then there's the rep that we both share, Jeff Brown.
Yes,
absolutely terrific. Jeff for 25 years, and we're installing a ton of Meyer Burger also.
Oh, very good. The world needs more Jeff Browns. Let's just call it that. The world needs more Jeff Brown.
All right. So great background, Vince. Let's talk specifically about the equipment, the solar panels, batteries, the services that you provide with Renova.
Okay. So under Renova, we are a company with an umbrella called Renova Energy Corporation. Within that organization, we have our operations team, which installs microgrids. We retrofit. We have new homes on retrofit. About 80% of our business is retro. The other 20% are new homes. Last year, we did a little less than 75 million in revenue in 2023. Of that, I would say also commercial makes up a good 20% of our revenue. Of course, not by number of jobs, but by revenue, because you're clearly taking in more money on those commercial systems. Then we've got under the trifecta that is Renova, the second core competency, second division is Renova Plus. Started that back in 07, 08. That's maintenance and service for Renova systems, as well as for the orphan systems from unfortunate defaults by other companies. About 60% of our business are servicing orphan systems, not Renova systems or SunPower leased systems, but those orphan systems. And then the third portion of Renova is Renova Roofs. I began that right in the beginning of the pandemic because I could no longer find roofing subcontractors, right? Because the world ended on us. So we began roofs, and that has actually become a profit center well beyond my expectations. Roofs works on only homes that have solar on them. It could be Renova's solar, or it could be anyone else's solar. We only stick to roofs with solar, and that business is thriving. Margins are 40 to 45%. It's just an incredible business. So I would say to anyone out there, if you have an HVAC division or whatever, God bless you, but that's not the right way to go. If you would like to earn more revenue and bring more to your top line and ultimately your bottom line, I would stick with our competencies. We're on rooftops, so darn it, go get our C39 in California and get a roofing division open, and then have your own service and maintenance, because driving around in trucks that service and maintain all day long is the number two for Renova, at least the number two driver of marketing.
Totally agree
Right.
with that. I love, I tell people we have one truck and we just drive it around Silicon Valley
Sure.
constantly. But,
Yeah.
we've got almost 20 trucks and people
Yeah.
see that and they see our trucks all the time. And that's just the people I bump into, but that's the
Sure.
marketing, the awareness that creates for the brand.
Oh my gosh, you hire a young man at 18, 20 bucks an hour to clean mods, and he's driving around in a van all day, a brilliant driving billboard, and it just drives more and more business. And he hands out cards and he hands out coupons and all that fun stuff. And it's very hokey in a way. It's generic, but it's human. I mean, we learned that, we even had a Zoom issue when I tried to ring in today. We all thought we were going to be these bubbled people who didn't need to interface and just needed to send text messages or be on Zoom calls. And that is entirely untrue. We all learned at the end of that pandemic that that's a good patch for a while, but human beings like that hokey handshaking, getting a coupon. It's going to be that way forever and ever, as long as human beings are breathing. So
Totally agree. All right. So we talked a little bit about Meyer Burger. We
yes.
talked a little bit about Jeff Brown.
Yes.
A lot of podcasts with Jeff over the years. He's terrific. But what other equipment do you install? What about batteries? What about systems
So
like that?
we were experts in the SunVault. SunVault was offered by SunPower, which ultimately that whole division went away. So we've been Powerwall since the very first Powerwalls came out. And about 2 years ago, we rekindled our relationship. It had always been very good with Tesla, but we became experts in that PW3. Excited to see the PW4s coming out. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff on that side. DC to DC, you and I have talked about this before. I mean, that's just the no-brainer in our industry. So connecting a DC mod to a PW3 is such a beautiful thing. But when you want module by module visibility, that's when you put an end phase on the back of your DC mod and couple that all together in a beautiful microgrid. We had very little penetration of microgrids in 2023 in Arizona, but man, Barry, did that pick up in 2024. We are 10 out of 10, like all California integrators, for battery integration. In Arizona in 23, we were 1 out of 10. Now we're 4 out of 10. So that's really picking up in Arizona. I expect that by the end of 2025, we'll certainly be at a 10 out of 10 battery installation throughout Arizona.
What about other services like EV chargers or other electrification things that you may do? How does that?
Yeah, my plea again to folks is I say you leave the HVAC, work to proper HVAC folks. You don't need that line. That's out of our line of concentration. I also say that, EV chargers, I would rather you open up a service and maintenance division and generate revenue that way and get the great positive impact in the community because you're a savior and you fix systems, you fix what you know. Adding EV chargers to homes, it's just this incidental thing that I don't find a company can be well known as the guys installed solar and boy, they installed a heck of an EV. I would rather we let other companies. There are great smaller electrical companies out there who can install those EV systems in homes. Besides batteries, solar.
I get it. It's pretty focused. Now we're taking a little bit of a different approach. We opened up an HVAC division. There's every other.
Good. Thanks.
Down
now
here.
you're embarrassing me. I am so sorry, Barry.
No.
Anyone but Barry should be
no,
hesitant.
There's, because my logic.
I'm sorry, brother.
Really looked at this. No.
Me.
It's great. My logic, and we looked at this, is there's a bunch of our competitors are doing roofing, and we're not experts in roofing. We could do it, and it makes a lot of sense. I see looking forward just a tremendous vacuum in the whole electrification category. So we're kind of betting more and more on any service we can provide with a wire because we see our really skilled commercial and residential electricians as being an asset, and all the different things that fit into the IRA electrification wise, whether it's EV charging or whether it's a heat pump water heater, I think those are kind of easy for us to do. The hardest one is HVAC. And there's barriers to entry there, and we will get good at it, and that will be half of our business in a few years, and that's going to hand in hand with solar and batteries because people want to electrify. And coming back to something that we're going to talk about later, it makes it a lot easier if we're able to help a homeowner and a business completely electrify, for them to basically say we don't need the utility anymore, for them to disconnect from the grid. So we're going to help with that. That's going to be motivated. There's money out there.
Good.
It's really hard. It's really, really hard.
I'm inspired by you, and I apologize for being so disrespectful. I just
No, you
didn't.
were Vince. Vince, you
I
were not disrespectful at all
I
because
I
I
get
respect everything you're saying.
I get concerned by the warranties and the coverages on that equipment. And that to me is, having to roll a truck out for an air conditioning system. It's different than having trained electricians who understand everything about the ecosystem of the microgrid. And so your brain is kind of split. And as long as you feel you've got competent crews that can stay in their lane and within your organization and only do air conditioning and air conditioning service, and then you've got your microgrid installation and microgrid service, then God bless you.
Yeah, it's the same. It's similar trucks. It's got the same branding on it. It says HVAC, it says EV chargers, and it really ends up to be very helpful from a customer acquisition standpoint. But,
Perfect.
and I think we're focused in the same way. Maybe you'll open an HVAC division in 2 years, I'll open a roofing division in 2 years, because we think the same way.
Good.
And we're
Then I'm
building
gonna come.
successful
Then I'm gonna come
businesses.
to you. You help me with the HVAC, and I'll help you with the roofing side. How about that?
Vince, that's a deal. We'll talk about
Okay.
that after the call. So we talked about battery systems.
Yes.
One of the challenges that we've encountered is that some of the battery systems require more support than the old solar. So how has supporting batteries changed the nature of the electrical work that you guys do?
Oh my gosh, the battery side is actually, the battery is truly going to be the controlling brain. You and I would love to see the day when a microgrid is actually controlled by the main panel. The main panel is an issue now. The costs for the lumens and the others who want to have the brain at the main panel is still too high. So now, as we're integrating batteries in, we're finding customers are looking at the Tesla app more than they're looking at, say, the Enphase app, or they're looking at, even SunPower under their My SunPower app. So truly, those who are taking the lead with battery storage, ESS, are developing the honest app interface with the customer. So the customer feels they have total control of their home, including those beautiful Cinnamon HVAC systems. All of that can be visible, can be turned on and off from that battery level. So that the battery guys are really the ones who are that cutting edge right now. Batteries, though, I believe are kind of where the PV industry was around 2017, 18, because you've got not every integrator understanding truly the installation and integration of the battery. We're going to get there. It's going to take a good probably 4 or 5 more years until it's just common knowledge, and all integrators are adding batteries, able to service batteries. For us, God bless Tesla. I mean, their support was, it was so about 3, 4, 5 years ago. It has really picked up. Tesla recognizes that the home storage section of their business is super important. So they've really moved a lot of, they opened a marketing team about a year ago. They didn't even have that before. So now they're taking serious the ongoing training on their power walls. And so anyone who's been afraid of batteries, I'd reach out to Tesla and start a relationship with them. And you'll see that they will send folks out into the field. They'll do Zoom calls to your guys who are in the field working on the panels. Their support is tremendous.
We're covering so much ground, and we'll actually break this up into 2 discussions. But just kind of wrapping up the first part of our discussion today, what advice do you have for homeowners and maybe businesses who are looking for solar, both from an equipment standpoint and an installer standpoint?
Yeah, it's local. It's local. God bless the Sunrun guys, even though I see some clouds hanging over their heads. Renova, God bless them, but they're not the solution. The solution, as you and I both know, and we've said this many, many, many times, this is truly an indigenous industry. This is a local industry. You've got to, and by local, between my desert here and the Tucson desert, those are very similar demographics. All the folks who are in Renova's Arizona offices are all local folks. Hiring local really relieves a lot of the frustration. So I would look for a local integrator first. Second, I would make sure that what they're selling in mods and batteries are the cutting edge technology. Don't just buy from someone because they say, hey, I got a bunch of leftover inventory and I think you might like this. No, there are many disadvantages to that. And just because you're going to save a little up front, isn't going to help you long term. Find also a company that does have a service group in-house. I've seen a lot of pop-ups in the last year, pop-up companies that truly aren't solar companies. They're just third-party sales. Some of them don't even have contractors licenses. So that's also something that customers should get on that CSLB website, Contractor State Licensing Board, and check the licensing of the people that you're doing business with. If it's different on the contract than it is on the CSLB website, you have reason for concern. So you need people who are operating honestly, who are not leasing or borrowing a contractor's license just so they can keep their doors open. That's very, very important. And finally, again, with that service side, you need to know that you're with a company that has everything in-house. And that to me is most important. Those are called full service providers, and those pop-up companies are completely short of being a full service provider. They'll sell you a contract and then they'll outsource everything else. Please be very careful of that. You can always call me directly. You can always call Barry. We will help you understand if the people who are knocking on your door or giving you phone calls, which is, by the way, first a terrible, already an upfront terrible indicator that you're getting into some trouble. But if you like the way the salesperson's speaking, you need to take control. It's your home, it's your money. You need to do that investigation. It's super simple. The internet is an excellent resource. Barry is the internet of all things solar. So reaching out to him, or if you can't get a hold of him, you can always reach out to me.
Vince, you basically just summarized and encapsulated a podcast that I recorded last week.
Oh,
I mean, and
all right, I hadn't heard that one yet.
Well, no, it's not out yet. You just
Okay.
kind of, you read my mind, but what it really means is that your experiences and my experiences are basically the same as far as building a sustainable solar business. You do it locally. And ironically, interestingly, that's the way the roofing business is.
Yes.
And that's the way the HVAC business is. And that's the way the solar business is going to be, because
Yes.
there may be national scale companies that provide some degree of services, but really at the end of the day, you're looking for a company that's local, that's in the community, that has local references, that's employed local people, that is going to be providing you with the best system at the best price over the long term. So that's great. I want to kind of get into something a little bit more personal about Vince. What do you, I mean, you're like crazy. What do you do for fun?
I am a big runner. Ran a half marathon just about a year ago now. So I love running. I love Peloton. If anyone jumps on Peloton, if you find Renova and Renova Energy hashtag, you will find me. I'm on that every other day. Those are my obsessions. Those I can jump on those, the bike at 5 o'clock in the morning, California time, or take a run early in the morning. And by the end of the few miles and the end of the Peloton, my mind is much clearer. And it makes it more sustainable for Renova, because I'm a pain in the ass to all my Renovians. So when I come in, a lot of them can tell if I've had a good run or I had a good Peloton just by my attitude, or So that's really that. I love rebuilding cars. I just finished a 65 Mustang that I took out of the flames and put a stock 289 in it, and just it's real basic. It's an automatic. It's a cruiser. She's pretty, And then I also rebuilt Citroen Du Chevaux,
Oh,
1977
horses.
Yes, I've always been fascinated by those cars, and so yeah, they're super simple to work on. They're just horizontally opposed, air cooled, and they're very fun. So that's where I spend my weekends. I have my garage, and I shut the doors and turn the music on and crank wrenches. So
right, you and Jay Leno, Renova.
Oh yeah,
Vince's garage and Jay's garage. It's
yeah,
funny about the running and the biking. I do the same thing. Sometimes I bike into work. Sometimes I bike home for lunch and bike back. This afternoon, I'm going to go on a 4-mile jog up and down a hill.
Oh, right on.
Because that's just kind of takes out the frustration. I come back more calm, and it also, it keeps your health up, and that gives us the energy to fight this good fight. So,
and isn't it fun in the morning to see that sun come up, or even in the evening to see that sun go down, and you're under it and you're alone with it, and it just reminds you that this is, what the hell else would we do? I mean, you talk about a purposeful reason for being, and it's all about energy and good energy. So
all right, good. All right. So how can people get in touch with Renova?
So you can call into our central corporate line, which is 760-568-3413, kind of a random number. And we have multiple 800 numbers, but of course, getting on Google, looking up Renova Energy, you'll get right to us. online. You could also email me at Battaglia. I don't know if you're going to put titles or anything on there, but if you don't, V as in Vincent, Battaglia, Battaglia at RenovaEnergy.com.
All right, perfect. Well, that's all the time we have on part one of this week's podcast with Vince Battaglia at Renova Energy. Stay tuned for part two, and it's going to focus a little bit more on some of the changes in the solar industry and, what's happening as really good companies kind of come and go. So thanks, Vince, for joining me on this week's show, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. If you missed any of today's show, you can always go to the Energy Show website at energyshow.biz and listen to the podcast.